Hi, friends. If you've ever built model tanks, you've definitely come across the iconic vehicles that the world of modeling can't be imagined without. These are the legends that every self-respecting modeler has on his or her shelf, from World War I classics to modern war machines. Today I have collected for you 10 tanks, without which modeling would be very different. Let's find out which of them have really become an integral part of our hobby. This will not be a top and not a rating, but rather a listing of really important tanks in chronological order of their appearance. The first tank worth mentioning is, of course, the legendary British Mark I, Mark II, Mark III, and their later versions. The history of tank building officially begins with these machines. After all, this is where it all started. Even the word tank originated at that time, invented as a cover name to mislead enemy spies into thinking these were agricultural or civilian machines, rather than a brand new type of weapon. These tanks have their own unique charisma and character. You simply can't mistake them for anything else. For years, this series set the direction for tank development. Visually, all versions of the Mark tanks look very similar, and to someone unfamiliar with the subject, they might appear identical. Only an enthusiast can spot the differences. As for model kits, I'd highlight the classic 1 to 35 scale kit from Tamiya, along with more modern options from Takom and Meng in the same scale. There's also Airfix in an unusual 1 to 76 scale, and several kits in 1 to 72. The selection isn't huge, but if you want to build a tank from this series, you still have some good options. The next tracked vehicle that is impossible to imagine scale modeling without is the Renault FT-17. This tank is remarkable because it is the forefather of all modern tanks. For the first time, it introduced what is now considered the classic tank layout: driver's compartment in the front, fighting compartment in the center, and engine in the rear. Additionally, it featured tracks positioned along the sides instead of wrapping around the entire hull. But the most groundbreaking innovation was the turret, mounted on top of the hull and capable of a full 360-degree rotation. This was a revolution in tank design, shaping the development of armored vehicles up to the present day. The Renault FT-17 is recognized as one of the most successful tanks of World War I. It was officially adopted by the French Army in 1917, with around 3,500 units produced. It was also licensed and manufactured in several other countries. USA as M1917, Ford two-man, 950 units produced. Italy as Fiat 3000, Soviet Russia, in a modified version known as Russian Renault. This tank remained in service during local conflicts until the late 1940s. It's hard to imagine scale modeling without it. Regarding model kits, one of the earliest 1 to 35 scale versions was produced by RPM, a Polish company known for interesting subjects, but with poor plastic quality and detailed precision. Today, Takom and Mung produce highly detailed and well-made Renault FT-17 kits. If you don't have this legendary tank in your collection yet, it's definitely time to fix that. Another tank without which modeling is unthinkable is T-34. Why it is impossible to imagine modeling and tank building without the T-34. The T-34 tank is not just a symbol of the Second World War, but also a true icon of world tank building. This vehicle combined powerful armament, reliable armor, and excellent maneuverability, which made it one of the best medium tanks of its time. However, its influence goes far beyond history. Without the T-34, it is impossible to imagine neither tank building nor the world of modeling. Why? 1. Influence on tank construction. The T-34 was a revolution in the design of armored vehicles. Its innovations, sloping armor, diesel engine, wide tracks, set new standards for tanks around the world. Many post-war vehicles, including the Soviet T-55, T-62, and even Western models, adopted its solutions to a greater or lesser extent. 2. Large-scale production. The production of the T-34 became the most mass-produced among medium tanks. More than 80,000 units were produced, making it one of the most recognizable tanks in the world. It fought on all fronts and left a mark in the military history of many countries. 3. Importance for modeling. The T-34 is one of the most popular tanks among modelers. It exists in a huge number of variants and modifications, including T-34-76, T-34-85, Commander and Trophy versions. Almost every major modeling firm has produced it in different scales, 1 to 35, classic kits from Tamiya, Dragon, Zvezda, Academy, MiniArt, RFM, and others, 1 to 48 and 1 to 72. Versions from Tamiya, Trumpeter, Revel, Zvezda, 1 to 16. Large and detailed models from Trumpeter and Takom. With such a variety of kits, every modeler can choose his perfect T-34, regardless of experience level and preferences. Conclusion. It is impossible to imagine either the history of tanks nor the world of modeling without the T-34. This tank has become a living legend, and if you don't have it in your collection yet, this is a great opportunity to remedy the situation. The next one I'd like to talk about is the Crusader tank. This is one of the most iconic British tanks of the Second World War. It played a key role in the North African campaign, where due to its high speed and maneuverability, it became an indispensable element of British troops' tactics. This tank was notable for its original design, lightly armored hull, and powerful 6-pounder gun in later versions. Although its armor was weaker than that of its competitors, it compensated for this with dynamics and numerical advantage. In modeling, the Crusader is one of the most popular British tanks, found in kits from Tamiya, Italeri, Dragon, Border Model, and IBG models, in 1 to 35 and 1 to 72 scale. This tank is an integral part of the history of armored vehicles, and if you don't already have one in your collection, now is the time to fix it. Next up, we have the Panzer IV. We've discussed Allied vehicles before, but now we'll look at a tank from the opposite camp. The Panzer IV is the most mass-produced German tank of World War II and one of the most recognizable tanks in history. It fought from 1939 to 1945 on all fronts, was constantly modernized, and remained the backbone of the German armored forces. This tank was versatile. It was used as a main battle tank, flamethrower, commander, anti-aircraft, and even self-propelled gun. It was the Panzer IV that gave rise to a whole family of armored vehicles, including the Stoggerfee, Jagdpanzer IV, and Wirbelwind. In modeling, Panzer IV is represented by a huge selection of kits from leading manufacturers: 135, Tamiya, Dragon, Border Model, RFM, Academy, Zvezda, etc. 1 to 48 and 1 to 72, Tamiya, Revel, Trumpeter. 116, detailed models from Trumpeter and Hang Long. Panzer IV is a classic, without which it is difficult to imagine both military history and the world of scale modeling. If you are fond of armored vehicles, this tank must be in your collection. Let's move on. If there is the most recognizable tank of World War II, it is without a doubt the Tiger. Its formidable appearance, powerful 88mm gun, and thick armor made it a legend. This tank terrified opponents, and its name became synonymous with armored power. But not only in history, but also in the world of modeling, Tiger has a special place. Why? I entered the Army in 1942 and immediately became the best heavy tank of that time. It was successfully used on the Eastern Front, in Africa and Europe, where its ability to hit opponents at a distance of up to 2 kilometers made it virtually invulnerable. Of course, the tank had its weaknesses: complexity in production, high price, and technical problems. But despite this, the Tiger Hine and its successor, Tiger II, remained in history as one of the most famous tanks of the 20th century. It is impossible to imagine scale modeling without the Tiger. It is so popular that it was produced by almost all leading companies. This tank attracts both beginners and experienced modelers, because each assembly reveals new details and possibilities of detailing. Tiger's presented in a huge number of variants: 1 to 35, classics from Tamiya, Dragon, RFM, Academy, Zvezda. Border Model 1 to 48 and 1 to 72, versions from Tamiya, Revel, Trumpeter, 1 to 16, detailed models from Trumpeter and Henglong. In addition, the Tiger's paint and camouflage options are endlessly varied, from gray 1942 vehicles to elaborate 1,944 striped schemes. Conclusion: Tiger is a true icon of armored vehicles and one of the most coveted tanks in modeling. If you are a modeler, Tiger assembly is inevitable sooner or later. The only question is which one you will choose. Next up is the M4 Sherman, the most mass-produced American tank of World War II and one of the most recognizable tanks in history. Its simplicity, reliability, and ability to be upgraded made it the backbone of the American armored forces and a key element of the Allied forces. This tank fought on all fronts, from North Africa and Europe to the Pacific Theater. It participated in the Normandy landings, the Battle of the Ardennes, the liberation of France, and the battles of Okinawa and Iwo Jima. After the war, the Sherman was used in conflicts through the 21st century, including wars in Korea, the Middle East, and even Latin America. The Sherman's main advantage was performance and maintainability. The Americans could produce hundreds of vehicles per month, while the Germans produced single Tigers and Panthers. Although the Sherman was inferior to the Panther and Tiger in frontal assault, its maneuverability, numerical superiority, and tactics made it a formidable opponent. In addition, the Sherman had many modifications: 76mm gun, Sherman M4A3E8 Easy 8 to fight heavy tanks, 105mm howitzer, fire support for infantry, Sherman Firefly, British version, with a 17-pound cannon capable of penetrating Tigers. The Sherman chassis was used to create UAS, engineer vehicles, and even flamethrower tanks. This tank is one of the most popular among modelers because Sherman is one of the main tanks of World War II. It has a lot of modifications. You can collect a whole line of different Sherman. Ideal for conversions and dioramas, the Sherman was used in a variety of conditions, from the deserts of Africa to the snowy roads of the Ardennes. The Sherman is available in all popular scales: 1 to 35, Tamiya, Dragon, RFM, Oscar Model, Academy, Zvezda, Italeri; 148 and 172, Tamiya, Revel, Trumpeter, Hasegawa; 116, large models from Trumpeter and Henglong. The Sherman is a symbol of World War II and one of the most affordable and interesting tanks for modeling. Its variety makes it a must-have for any collection. If you don't have a Sherman yet, you're missing out on a lot. In some circles, ardent Sherman fans are called Shermaniacs. The next Panzer VIII Maus was the heaviest tank in history, the epitome of the German super tank concept. Developed at the end of World War II, it was huge, incredibly armored and armed with a 128mm gun that could destroy any armored vehicle of the time. Despite its power, the Maus was virtually useless in combat. Its weight of 188 tons made it extremely slow and impractical. Only 2 prototypes were built, but even that was enough to make the Maus a legend. Maus in modeling. This tank could not help but become popular among modelers due to its uniqueness and futuristic design. It looks like a vehicle from an alternate history, and that is why it is loved to be collected both in historical camouflage and in fantastic what-if variants. Model selection. The Maus is available in a variety of scales: 1 to 35, Dragon, Takam, RFM; 1 to 72, Dragon, Trumpeter, Model Collect. Despite the fact that the Maus never made it to mass production, it cannot be ignored in the world of modeling. It is one of the most unusual and iconic tanks, which simply must be in the collection of every modeler. Of course, the list wouldn't be complete without the Churchill, one of the most recognizable British tanks of World War II. Its long hull, thick armor, and powerful drive made it an excellent assault tank, especially in rough terrain. It fought in North Africa, Europe, and on the Eastern Front, and thanks to numerous modifications was used even after the war. It had an unusual design. It had an unusually long hull and narrow tracks, which allowed it to cross ditches and rough terrain better than many other vehicles. Its armor was very thick, especially for the early years of the war, but the weak armament of the early versions made it vulnerable against German tanks. Over time, the Churchill received improved versions, such as the Churchill Mark, 7th with reinforced armor and the Churchill Crocodile flamethrower variant. It was also used as the basis for engineering vehicles, including bridge-laying vehicles and tanks for destroying fortifications. This tank has become iconic among modelers because it's very unusual in shape and design. It has many modifications, from a regular tank to engineering vehicles. Looks great in dioramas, especially in Normandy, Italy, and North Africa. Third, choice of models. Churchill is available in different scales, 1 to 35, Tamiya, AFV Club, Dragon, Italeri, 1 to 72, Trumpeter, Airfix, Revel. Conclusion. Churchill is a unique tank, which is difficult to confuse with something else. It occupies an important place in history and modeling, and if you haven't collected Churchill yet, it's time to do it. Last on this list, and the only representative of modern armored vehicles, is the Israeli Merkava tank. Perhaps his choice is subjective, but it is hard to deny that this vehicle has a special place both in history and in the world of modeling. Designed specifically for the Middle East, the Merkava is characterized by an unusual layout. The engine is located in the front rather than the rear, which improves crew protection. A rear ramp, similar to a BMP, allows for landing soldiers or evacuating the wounded. Powerful armament, including the ability to fire ATGMS through the barrel. This tank has participated in all major Israeli conflicts, from the 1982 Lebanon War to modern operations in the Middle East. Why is it so popular among modelers? Unusual and futuristic design, unique paint schemes, desert camouflage, with distinctive operational marks, modern equipment that looks great next to classic tanks. Merkava is available in all major scales, 1 to 35, Tamiya, Meng, Academy, Hobby Boss, 1 to 72, Trumpeter, Revel, 116, Hang Long for fans of large models. Although the Merkava is the youngest tank on this list, its importance and uniqueness make it a must-have model for a collection. It is different from all the others and brings a modern look to the world of modeling. This is the list of 10 tanks, without which modeling is unthinkable. Of course, this is a subjective choice, and every modeler can have his own top. Write in the comments which tanks you consider essential for the world of scale modeling. Maybe I missed someone? It will be interesting to read your opinion. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Thanks for watching and see you soon.